Good day, Ignatians. Welcome to the new normal education. I would like to introduce to you our subject, purposive communication. So I will be your English teacher for the whole semester. Sir Kevin, let us begin. Let us begin with the definition of communication. Communication is the act of conveying meanings from one entity or group to another through the use of mutually understood signs, symbols, and semiotic rules. Communication has two ways of conveying information, such as ideas and feelings or opinions between two or more persons, either verbally or non-verbally using a medium. Communication is very relevant in our lifestyle because language is part of communication. Therefore, we cannot live without this. Communication process has two important persons who have huge roles. First, we have the sender. Sender is responsible for giving messages, and receiver, who is responsible for receiving messages and for replies and responses. Communication process. To deeply understand this, I provided a communication cycle. This cycle starts with the sender. As what I said earlier, that sender is responsible for giving messages, and sender is the person who wants to communicate. Sender must do encoding, which is the second step. So what is encoding? Encoding is the process of transforming thoughts of the information to be conveyed into a form that can be sent, such as words. This is also how a message to be communicated. After encoding, the result is message, right? Message, this could be an oral or written. This is a form of words from what the senders encoded. Message will be sent into a channel. Channel, this is the manner in which the message is sent. It includes speaking, writing, video transmission, audio transmission, electronic transmission through emails, text messages, and even non-verbal communication such as body language. As a sender, you must know your target, and that's the receiver, right? So receiver is responsible for receiving messages, replies, and responses. When the receiver sees, writes, or hears the message, it gets decoded. So what is decoding? Translation and interpretation of the message back into something understood by the receiver. Actually, decoding and encoding are the same, but not that's always the case. I just want to share that if the decoding fails, the message will be failed too. For example, the message is written in English and your language is Spanish. So probably if you cannot understand the text, the message would be failed. Before I proceed to the next one, as you can see, there are three arrows here between message, channel, and receiver, and that's the noise. Noise is anything that blocks, distorts, or changes in any way the message where the sender intended to communicate, like signals or some interruptions. Last, we have the feedback. Feedback is a check on the success of the communication. The receiver sends the message back to the original sender, assesses to see if the receiver understood the original message, repeating and paraphrasing the original message, asking for clarification, or asking if your conclusion are correct. These are form of feedback. So this is a communication process. I hope that you learned something. I just want to share the principles of effective communication. Come on, let us study this.
Principle of clarity in ideas. First of all, it should be clear in the mind of the sender as to what he wants to say. According to Terry, the principle of effective communication is first to fully inform oneself. The clearer the thoughts, the more effective is the communication. You must provide vivid messages because it can cause confusion if it is not clear. Do not go too broad and speak for specific ideas. For example, instead of saying, I am already a graduate student and I have a diploma, you should say, I am a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English from Pamantasan ng Cabuyao, last 2018. So therefore, there will be no followed questions or clarifications. Second, principle of appropriate language. The communication should always be in a simple language, meaning speak for the basics. Speak for understandable words. Do not use some hard terminologies like highfalutin words, jargon, slangs. Do not use those because those are very unfamiliar words. It means you must talk formally. Ideas should be clear and be devoid of any doubts. Next. Third, principle of attention. The purpose of communication is that the receiver of information should clearly understand its meaning. It means merely transferring information is not communication, and it is important that the receiver should understand it. This is possible only when the receiver takes interest in the message and listens to it attentively. For example, as a student, you are currently listening to your teacher, and you must focus on the details, you must focus on the topics just to be knowledgeable, and then take down notes. Another example, you were in a seminar. You want to be updated on what is happening, so you must focus on the speaker's speech and then encourage yourself or motivate yourself to listen carefully. And that's it. You have to be attentive. Next. Number 4, principle of consistency. Communication system should maintain consistency in the objectives of the enterprise, its procedures and processes. It means communication should be in accordance with the policies laid down for it. For example, you are a manager in a company and you want your employees to be informed and oriented always. As a manager, you are always repeating the objectives, proper procedures, and process. This kind of consistency will help your employees to have a great retention. Next. Number 5, principle of adequacy. The information sent to the receiver should be sufficient and complete in every respect. So inaccurate information may delay action and create confusion. Inadequate information also affects the receiver's comprehension. Information more than the need or less than the need is harmful. In the context of business, incomplete information is dangerous. So it means lack of information and too much of information can harm the receiver. For example, you are a researcher and you will be having an oral defense. You have a lot of information that are not included in the study. And this may cause to confusion for the panelists. And if you have a lack of information, probably your study would be a highly inevident. That's it. Next. 6. Principle of proper time. The messages should reach the receiver whenever they are needed. Late messages are meaningless and the utility of communication is needed. Hence, the message should be sent before the actual need. Keeping in mind the time required for communication. You must think first before you give a message, and it must be detailed, because if you forgot something before the action, it would mislead to communication and trouble. For example, you were assigned to announce the upcoming quiz bee and you forgot the mechanics of the game, and when the day comes, it may cause trouble. Next, 7. Principle of informality. Formal communication has a prominent place among the channels of communication, but informal communication is not as important. Why? There are some problems which cannot be solved with formal communication, but informal communication does succeed in solving them. Therefore, informal communication should also be given recognition in the organization, because informal communication does not follow any lines of communication and moves freely in all the directions. For example, the advantage of informal communication for employees: they can discuss work-related issues, which saves time and resources. Information also passes quickly, unlike formal communication that has due process. Principle of feedback. It is essential for the sender of the message that he should know about the success of the message. Feedback is very important to communication. Why? Because you can see whether the receiver has understood the message or not. Feedback is easily obtained in a face-to-face communication with the help of the facial reactions of the receiver. It could be verbal or non-verbal. Say verbal. Verbal could be spoken or written. Non-verbal could be body language, facial expressions, or gestures. It also enables you to evaluate the effectiveness of your message, if it is clear or need clarification. Principles of integration. Communication should be able to introduce all the employees in the enterprise with its objective, so that all the employees move unitedly towards a goal. So it gives harmonious relationship with the admin, staff, or managers with the employees. And if they integrate, you can put different strategies or specific procedures, techniques for the betterment of the company. Another example, um, you can put a lot of specific strategies for marketing if you want to run a business, and you can use internet, social media, or other tools to pursue a nice quality of business. Number 10. Principle of consultation. The suggestions of all the persons concerned should be invited while making plans for communication. This will contribute to the success of the communication system through planning and giving such ideas to have confidence. Planning for communication aims to determining as to when, how, and through what medium communication is to be done among people working at different levels. If the consultation is always there, it will lessen the errors and will have a nice understandings. This enables the both persons to be attentive even they have different levels. This will also eliminate confusion. 11. Principle of flexibility. Communication system should be able to absorb the changes in the organization. A communication system that cannot absorb changes according to the need becomes meaningless. Flexibility for a good communication is an advantage. You must absorb changes and release what is common. No matter whether these changes, good or bad at times, but it will teach you something new. It will give you more understandings and prepare you for the good future. Change is an invitation to try a new experience and to take advantage of a new opportunity. 12. Principle of economy. Communication system should not be unnecessarily costly. So meaning, as far as possible, unnecessary messages should be reduced to the minimum to make communication economical. No single employee should be burdened with the work of communication. I just want to share that to lessen stress and struggle, do not throw several unnecessary messages to the employees to avoid burden and struggle. Too much messages can be harmful. Next, let us proceed to the next one. Number 13, principle of proper medium. In order to make communication effective, it is necessary not only to have clarity of ideas, consistency, and completeness, but also to make a proper choice of medium. So this is the last principle of effective communication. For example, as a manager of a company, you should use a medium for oral communication. It is for announcement, for meetings, for orientation, or for individual communication. You can use also written communication for files, documents, letters, endorsement, or any policy matters. So as a manager, you should use proper medium for a nice understandings of the employees as well as the manager. Next.
Those are the principles of effective communication. I just want to share that having a good communication skills, you must have a proper delivery of words, mastery of details, nice retention, nice choice of words, and be attentive. So you must practice more and have progress. So that's all for today, and I hope that you learned something. Goodbye and thank you for your participation. See you next meeting, Ignatians.